Starter homes are usually seen as a less expensive way to become a homeowner, but what if that starter home costs $1 million or more? Seven-figure starter homes are common in several cities right here in the Seattle metro area. Tyra's down in the Arc Lounge this morning with Adriano Tori of RexMont Real Estate to explain why homes are just so darn expensive and what first-time buyers can do to make them more affordable. I'm listening, Tyra.
I'm listening too, Steve. Adriano, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. First off, what is considered a starter home?
Well, a starter home is a house that is small, inexpensive, quote unquote, right, in the area where people are planning to stay for a short period of time until their financial means increase, right? And with that as well, for the most part, like the small or a first-time home or a starter home, usually also are considered properties that are lower in price compared to the majority of homes in a given area in the community. And as we've seen, in these most recent months, the average home price are now coming at $1 million.
Wow!
And so many people are asking, well, how am I going to break into home ownership? And so there are different ways that people are looking to be more creative nowadays to get into that ability to buy a home and then ultimately own it.
And we're going to learn more about those creative ways shortly. But first, I want to ask you, where are the most expensive starter homes in the Seattle area?
Yeah, so what we've seen in the last 24 months, North Seattle is going to be one of those communities. Green Lake, anything that is adjacent to Fremont, Queen Anne. And then moving to the east side, we're going to see that the average a cost of a starter home now is at close to 1.1 million. Cities like Bellevue, Kirkland, Sammamish, Redmond, where not just too long ago, we were at least at a point where we could have more accessibility to housing, but because demand has increased, there are people coming into the state because we have a very stable economy. In fact, through a survey this year by the Atlas Van Lines, we are now the 9th more desirable state.
Wow.
In the
people
country
are moving
to move in. We're moving here, yeah, exactly.
And you've seen a lot of changes. You've seen those changes firsthand, working in real estate all these decades long here in Washington. So let's talk about some of those creative ways, because a seven-figure, price for a home just doesn't seem attainable for a lot of people. Is there anything people can do to make housing more affordable, to sort of maybe even reach that goal?
Yeah, the first thing that a home buyer, will have to look into is the financials, right? And to look into the financials, they need to be talking to an experienced agent in the community that can help them guide in the right direction. And as they set up the realistic expectations on the financials, then they can look into expanding what programs or strategies that they can implement to ensure that that experience of hunting for a home is like an exhilarating one, right? An exciting one. Now, in terms of what creative ways are there to be able to break into homeownership, we are going through a market right now where things are adjusting. So we have more inventory today than what we've seen this time of the year last year. So about 12% more inventory, more listings. There are more sellers, there are more home buyers. And so that brings an opportunity to negotiate on prices. It brings an opportunity to also negotiate concessions paid by sellers to cover closing costs. And if buyers had a budget to cover certain amount for closing costs, now they can use that into a reserve account to contribute towards the mortgage payment until their financial condition allows them, to have more money for, buying another property in the future that might meet that need at that time. Most of the market in the past have been moved by deaths, divorces, diamonds, and diapers.
Diamonds
right?
and diapers.
Right? And so that's what we're seeing a lot of people making decisions in selling, buying. Another way to help in basically reducing the cost of homeownership is that as we negotiate concessions with the seller, we can use that money towards buying discount points. That could be a means to temporarily arrange payments for a period of 2, 3, or even 5 years, where the early time of the mortgage is going to be lower payments, and then over time they will increase. And one thing that is for sure that we've seen over the years is that the rates never stay the same.
Right.
They tend to go up, they tend to go down. Right now, where the interest rates are still a little bit higher than what we want them to be, but it's still lower than what we saw last year. About this time of the year last year, the interest rates were about 7.25. Right now, they're about 6.75. So even though it's high, it's not as bad as it was last year. But even though the market is still steady because of the number of people that are coming in the community, there are still opportunities for people to negotiate concessions on buying the rates down. Another way to help in affording a property, especially when those in those $1 million in that $1 million range, is to look into first-time home buyer programs that are sponsored by the state of Washington. There are certain criteria that one needs to meet. The household income cannot go above $180,000 a year. But one of the major advantages that you would have as a first-time home buyer is that any money that you would have set aside for a down payment, now you can keep it in your bank account.
Nice.
And ultimately get into homeownership without having to put a lot of that, hard-earned dollars.
Those great tips. I mean, this market, like you said, the prices continue to fluctuate, but it's good to hear that there's some good building blocks to at least make that figure more attainable to reach. And I love to hear about that first-time homeowners program as well. Seems like a great starting point for people just looking to get started.
It is, for sure.
Thank you so much, Adriano. Steve, did you get all that? Take notes?
Still a lot of money.
It is still a lot of money, but there are some steps.
Yes,
you
there
got to
are.
start with step 1. Get a good real estate professional to help guide you through.
Start somewhere. That's right.
Thank
you.
you.
Guys.